Good evening, my good friends. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to my live stream. Welcome to my channel. Let me introduce myself. My name is Andre Lefevre. Lefevre. I am a extreme libertarian, an independent citizen journalist. I like to mouth off on things political, things cultural, and things interesting. And today I want to mouth off on many interesting subjects. Uh, I have a full live stream for us today. We are witnessing something extremely interesting. It's in slow motion, so it is hard. It is hard to understand the big process. But the so-called quote unquote, the New World Order, of which President Bush elder spoke so eloquently not too long ago, is crumbling something awful. And the banking left, I'd say the whole left, including the Democrat Party, are having a collective hissy fit. Now, it may look like things are not going too well for MAGA and for the freedom-loving people, especially that the Democrat Party was able to steal the Senate seat from Arizona very easily by manufacturing absentee votes, and now the Democrat Party in Florida is busy manufacturing literally tens of thousands of absentee ballots, fraudulent absentee ballots in Florida, and it looks like they have even chance of pulling the stealing those two elections too, taking away the Senate seat from Rick Scott and putting a Democrat into the governor's mansion in Florida. And what they're doing is not complicated. They're simply fraudulently making up absentee ballots, thousands of them, maybe even tens of thousands of them. And they're not shy about doing that. They're not hiding it. When Rick Scott asked the law enforcement state law enforcement in Florida, I can't remember the proper name for it, to intervene, they basically told him, go F yourself. The law enforcement in Florida is so corrupt, it's beholden to the Democrat Party. Broward County, where most of the recount is going on, or where most of the shenanigans are going on, there's no law enforcement. It's worse than Banana Republic. They're openly thumb nosing at everything decent and legal. But having said that, we are still winning. Is because why am I saying that? Is because it's now done in the open. The corporate control media in the past hashed things like that up. Now, don't think for a second that manufacturing votes and ballots, fixing elections, voter fraud is something new in the American politics. It is not. It was always done primarily by the progressives, Democrat Party after President what was it? President Jackson, Andrew Jackson, have created it. I don't think there were any, at least I have not seen any major shenanigans when he was elected. But Democrats during the antebellum period, both in the eastern cities and in the south, did all kinds of weird stuff. For instance, imagine you're going home to vote in your little town. You pull up in a train, and there's a big wagon says, here's your candidate who's going to vote against the Democrat Party. Uh, Whoever it was, let's say it was Republican, if it was in the late 1850s, and you get into that wagon, and you know they're going to take you to the precinct, and they're serving you whiskey, and they're serving you some food, and everybody's happy. The reality is the wagon was hired by the Democrats, and by the time people who boarded that wagon realized they're so far away from the precinct to be able to vote, that was a very, very, very common way of thwarting elections in the 19th century. Another one, and that was reminiscent of the Kavanaugh hearings, the one I read more than once, when the Democrats would hire a bunch of homeless kids, sometimes black kids, to run up to the white Republican candidate and yell really loud, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, how come you forsaken us?" And of course, the muckraking press would pick that up. So there was a lot of interesting, wonderful, and creative ways that through the American history that elections were fixed. Political assassinations, were not uncommon at all. Andrew Jackson, when he was elected, apparently, and that will sound real familiar to you, a deranged individual, a white lone gunman with two pistols, tried to shoot him as Andrew Jackson was trying to get inside the White House. There were no Secret Service back then. For unknown reason, both pistols misfired, and according to the legend, Andrew Jackson took his walking stick and beat the would-be assassin half to death. I can't remember the name of the assassin. Other accounts, one of his aides, a young naval officer, actually did the beating. But I like the legend where Andrew Jackson beat the assassins half to death. Of course, we all know the tragedy of President Lincoln being assassinated in the Ford Theater in 1865. Teddy Roosevelt was shot during, I cannot remember in what year, but as he was doing the election campaign speech, some lunatic, and again, reminiscent, a lone white gunman that nobody could find any conspiracy with, shot him in the chest. And as much as I don't like Teddy Roosevelt as a historical figure, he showed himself a man. He continued doing his speech and only started looking for medical attention after he finished his speech. Our great-great-grandfathers, and no, they were men. A little thing like a bullet in your chest wouldn't stop them from continuing the speech. Imagine if Hillary Clinton got shot, or or Al Gore, or one of those other pussified Democrat politicians got shot. Imagine the acrimony. In those days, men were men. So, if you got shot, you just did what needed to be done. Seeking medical attention, who effing cares? I'm kind of speechless. I'm kind of speechless when I think about our ancestors and how far we degraded. Well, I think part of the reason things are changing is because of that. It's simply because of that. Is that people are tired. That's why we elected Donald Trump, because we're tired of politically correct, pussified nature of our culture, which is cultural Marxism, where individuals are worthless and collective is the most important. And we all are supposed to act like little children to our elites. Our banking elites really took control in the early 20th century. They truly took control. All the progressive ideas that came out were not created to help middle class or ordinary citizens. They were only created to solidify power over us, the American middle class. Progressives and the left, and I'm going to come to some hard facts and some ideas why the future is bright. So stay with me, ladies and gents. So in the early 20th century, all the progressive ideas, the great idea, trade unions, for instance, to protect workers, deteriorated into controlling the workers through forcibly extracting money from them and then basically laundering re-election contributions. and lining the pockets of the corporate elite and of the union elite. Does anybody think so naive to think that today's union leaders and today's management don't have the same goals, that the backroom deals that they make have anything to do with the betterment of the workers, with the workers' situation? Especially that it looks like now the majority of the union members in the United States are government employees, which is to me is basically a contradiction of philosophies. Uh, we need to be protected by the credit by the unions from the government employees, not have government employees represented by the unions against us, the taxpayers. Basically, we have a fox guarding the hen house in that particular in that particular situation. Also, at the beginning of the 20th century, the banking elite created federal reserves and truly took control over in Europe over the central banks, which means now the banking elite can create money at will for themselves. And the mechanism is real simple. The Federal Reserve, which is the small group of families control that particular, and it's a private institution, don't get me wrong. They create money out of thin air. They lend it to the government, which spends money on government orders to the banking elite, and guess who pays it back? We do, the middle class, the only people that really pay taxes in the United States, because wealthy live off trust funds and they don't pay taxes. And the destitute, the welfare recipients, get money from the government, from our taxes. So the only people who actually pay taxes are us, the middle class. And I think we woke up. Um, so that was the idea of a new world order. Now, if Trump wasn't elected, let me tell you the direction we are taking. We're still taking, except there's some hope. And actually, I'm convinced that this is going to be reversed. Uh, Here is this story. And let me see if I can bring this up. Let me do it a little bigger here. This is from The Verge. Amazon patents wristbands that track warehouse employees' hands in real time. And let me read you a paragraph. The system would use haptic feedback to steer workers to the right items for packing. So think about this. You work for Amazon, they put this controlling wristband that monitors where you are at all times. You basically LoJack, GPS. Amazon has granted a pair of patents for a wristband that can pinpoint the location of warehouse employees and track their hand movements in real time. I mean, they would know how you move your hands. So apparently, there will be two wristbands. The patents first spotted by GeekWire described an inventory management system comprised of trackers and receivers used to monitor workers' performance. The original patents were both filed back in 2016, but were granted on January 30th, and I think it was in this year. The proposed system includes ultrasonic devices placed around the warehouse, the wristbands themselves, and management module that oversees everything. The wristbands also feature ultrasonic unit that they use to track where the worker is in relation to any particular inventory bin. If their hands are moving in the wrong items, the bracelet will buzz. So imagine you're working for a company that will actually buzz your hands if you put your hand somewhere where it doesn't want to. It controls, micromanages your hands. I don't even think millennials would like something like that, and they're the least freedom-loving generation. Now, this is just the beginning. This is a story from Sputnik I found today. Even more control. Major UK business bodies worry about microchip implants. The UK's biggest employer organization and largest trade unions body have expressed alarm over the prospect of national companies implanting staff with microchips to improve security after it was revealed biotech, which offers implants to businesses and individuals, has already chipped 150 Britons. So, no, so forget the wristbands. We're now being microchipped. Biojacking, in which microchips the size of grain of rice are typically injected in the flesh between the thumb and forefinger, is granting increasing traction across Europe, particularly Scandinavia. The digital implants can store data such as medical information or allow bearers to open electronic security doors, even start cars. So if you don't have this MF injected to you, you won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to drive a car. You probably won't even be able to get in and out of your apartment. And keep in mind that Scandinavian countries are probably the least free, maybe in the world. I'm going to touch upon that misconception of type of government, type of society that Scandinavian countries have. They call them socialists and everything else, but reality is it's a pure, pure fascism dream. Benito Mussolini could not dream about a society that is in line so well with his ideas, but I'll touch upon it a little later. The Telegraph reported on November 11th. Telegraph reported Swedish, and I am on Sputnik News. The Telegraph reported Swedish firm BioOx was in discussion with several British firms about, including a major company with hundreds of thousands of employees. The firm, which plans to open an office in London, claims to have microchipped 4,000 people so far. 4,000 people already microchipped. So far, mostly Swedes. It is currently working with state-owned rail firm Certain Jarnavagard to its passengers to travel via implants rather than traditional tickets. Again, how soon? That's the only way you'd be able to travel. If you don't have the chip, you simply won't be able to travel. The firm made headlines the world over in April 2017 when the mainstream media reported the firm was responsible for forcible implants of microchips of employees of Sweden firm Epicenter, a forcible implants. You know, you have to pay attention to this word. Those Swedes have so little freedom that they couldn't resist. They were forcefully implanted the microchips that tracks them. A corporate innovation lab to monitor how long they spend on lunch, cigarettes, and bathroom breaks. The reality of the story was, according to Patrick Messerton, chief executive and co-founder of Epicenter, much less nightmarish. Let's see if I can go back. Let's see. I was shocked at the massive exaggeration. The implants, so-called passive chips, they have no built-in power supply, so they can't send signals on a subject position or movements. They get their power from and can only send data to reading devices that must be applied directly to the chip. The mobile phone or internet search history poses a bigger threat than RFID chip we use over the world. We're certainly not tracking when users go for cigarettes and how long they take. We simply can't. I don't believe that. I simply do not. I simply don't know. But that's the goal. You know, I was born in the Soviet Union. I left when I was a teenager, and I have to say, even at the worst time of the Stalin's era, nothing like that was envisioned by the Russian communists. Yeah, they killed tens of millions of people. They applied other forms of torture. They starved millions of people to death on purpose. They ran a slave economy during the Stalin's period. But let me tell you something. Idea of microchipping everybody, from micromanaging somebody's hand movements and doing. I can't even. I don't have the right words of outrage to micromanaging, turning a person into a mechanical robotic device. Nowhere in the Soviet communist literature you would find anybody not even supporting that. That did not occur to them. They were a lot more crude and a lot more straightforward in their punishment. But today's Marxists, today's lefties, they have exceeded even the Soviet Union. Chinese, of course, are all for it. As a matter of fact, I suspect that the Chinese culture allows such gross violation of human privacy and such total disrespect of individual freedom. Now, that's what we're fighting in the United States. The corporate elite controls the Democrat Party, controls the corporate control media. Weirdly enough, we had to go to Europe, to European news outlets, to find those kind of stories, because corporate control media does not report it now. And I'm coming to the point where I'm going to say I see a bright future. We have a robust independent media. Probably at the forefront, and he's not shy about calling himself the tip of the spear, is Alex Jones. And of course, Big Tech, Silicon Big Tech, kicked him off. And I'll tell you what, while I talk about him, let me bring InfoWars up. Infowars.com. See, come on, Mr. Google, let me bring up. I know you, Mr. Google, you control everything, but God, it's slow. So forgive me. I'm going to bring it up in just a second. Oh, I need to bring this up so you can see it. Security check. I am human, and I just typed in. Hold on. Infowars. That's weird. They were able to get. Here we go. Here's Infowars. But anyways, so we can't talk about alternative media. And I heard a wonderful term we used recently. It's alt-tech, alt-tech, alternative technology. And of course, if you want to get those kind of news, you can go to Alex Jones's Infowars. Silicon Big Tech have kicked him off the internet. The shadow banning even small independent journalists like myself. They are shadow banning and kicking off all the libertarian and conservative voices, even the traditional liberal, the classical liberal voices, the shadow ban and kick off, like Prager University. They're neither libertarian nor conservative. The man who runs it is an Orthodox Jew. So they also doing something else. Visa and PayPal are actually stopping payment services to those companies and to those news outlets, independent, of course, whose ideas they don't like. There's a ramification for that, bad for them and good for us. But let's start with this. As a result of big tech being a big, being a big brother, we have a bunch of interesting platforms that came up. This one is called Gab, and right before the elections, of course, the big tech, the platform, the Gab, just kicked them off the internet. Period. You just couldn't. They have been reinstated. I haven't done a lot of research what happened, but Gab is a direct competitor to Twitter. In many ways, they're much better than Twitter. They don't have as many followers yet, but there's a huge exodus of people from other platforms, including Twitter, to Gap. The next one is a competitor to YouTube, and I think Alex Jones has something to do with this one. It's called Brighteon. Originally, when they came out a few months ago, they were called a real dot video. Now they're called Brighteon. I'm a member of Brighteon. I have a following on it. I have my channel on there. Post a lot of videos. I like it, and apparently it's growing. The next one is also a competitor to YouTube. That's called BitChute. I have very good experience with BitChute. Sometimes I have more viewers on my videos on BitChute than I do on YouTube. The next one is Steemit. It is a wonderful website. I have a channel in there too, and it's sort of you really have to use it. It's sort of a combination of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. It's unique. It's unique, and as far as I could detect, it has no censorship at all. This one is Minds, and Minds is a competitor, a direct competitor of the Facebook. I should be using it more. I haven't been using it a lot, but it's a very interesting project. Now, since uh, the corporate payment processors in Visa and PayPal decided they're going to wage ideological war against the free press in the United States and try to prevent people who put independent content on the internet from collecting money for it. This is why we have cryptocurrency. I don't know if you guys know, and this is something that was not widely publicized. There used to be a website called Backpage that advertised prostitution, sex services. And of course, our law enforcement never understood why prostitution should be legal in our country. In most of the states are even regulated. Why a private relationship between a man and a woman should be subject to the big brother oversight. But be that as it may, it is illegal in most of the states, highly illegal. And apparently, some of the law enforcement was going after Backpage, which was since forced to close, going after the people who put up the ads using their credit card numbers, which they paid for the ads, the prostitutes who paid for the ads, going after them that way. Well, that was the dawn of the cryptocurrency, and Backpage started accepting cryptocurrency. Back then was a Bitcoin, so for a while that's how they survived. Of course, using the pretext that the Backpage was involved in child trafficking, they were forced to close. I have a lot to say about those vice crimes in the United States in the tradition, but it's a subject for another live stream. But anyways, I am on coinmarketcap.com. There are literally thousands of cryptocurrencies now, and I'm just randomly going through them. Pretty much all the illicit trade of anything, drugs primarily, is done in cryptocurrencies. And since they made First Amendment illicit now, I suspect this is a direction that independent journalism is going to go. We will have to, if we want to. I personally am an amateur. I'm a total amateur. This is a hobby for me. I don't get paid. But I can see sometime in the future as my channels grow and as I gain following to use cryptocurrency to be paid. Some of it is totally untraceable so far. At least I have not found any information that there's some very, very solid cryptocurrencies that cannot be traced at all. I mean, illicit drug trade is primarily done, from what I understand, in cryptocurrency now, and I suspect many other things are done in cryptocurrencies. Uh, 2 years ago, there was a big run up on Bitcoin primarily, and it shut up, and then it bounced back. So a crap load of yappy investors, primarily your New York smart money, quote unquote, crowd, lost their pants on it, so they got out of it, and thank God. Uh, Cryptocurrency, I mean, many people use it as an investment vehicle, and thank God, it's not a bad investment vehicle if you keep track of it, but it is an alternative. It is an alternative to the banking elite's banking system, where the U.S. dollar and euro and other banking controlled so-called real money, quote unquote, they have no value at all. Nothing backs them up. The only thing that backs them up is the fact that in 2018, we as Americans, we still believe that it has some value. So what I see, what I see is a major cultural and political shift. I think we are winning, but we're not winning the way people expect. This is not a Hollywood situation when you have somebody sheriff riding into town and cleaning it up and putting the bad guys in jail. That's what we expected, that type of a Hollywood scenario when Donald Trump got elected. No, it's a street fight. For more than 100 years, American middle class happily slept and allowed the small number of hereditary uh, white men, I wouldn't even call them men, white boys, the trust fund kids, to control our economy, control our banking system, control our political institutions. And only recently we've begun to wake up from our slumber. We're not all completely awake and feebly fighting back. They're fighting back. They know how to fight back. They're fighting back us hard, and we are still winning. We are still in control of the U.S. Senate, which means that we can control. President Trump can appoint conservative and libertarian judges, the judges who interpret the Constitution and don't make laws, don't make progressive laws from the bench. Also, it seems to be by firing Jeff Sessions, he is now in pretty good control of the Justice Department, which means he can prosecute people on the left, on the progressive side, who break the laws. I like the fact that he openly recognized the danger of illegal invasion. Don't get me wrong, we call them illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants. They're not immigrants. They are invited and bussed in by the Democrat Party in order to replace us, the middle class, because middle class have no longer sees Democrat Party as something interesting. As a matter of fact, I have to say that most of us, working people who actually work and pay taxes in this country, despise the Democrats. You have to be either part of the power elite or you have to be a welfare recipient in order to support the Democrat. The decent, God-fearing, hardworking Americans do not support the Democrat Party. So they have to cheat. In the past, when there was not that wide recognition how corrupt and how despicable they are, they could get away with small voting fraud, just manufacturing tens, sometimes hundreds of illegal ballots. Now in Florida, they have to manufacture thousands or maybe tens of thousands of fraudulent ballots in order to win, which means that Democrats really don't have any popular support Not in Florida, not anywhere else. I am in California. And California was flipped Democrat a long time ago. It wasn't flipped because they had better ideas. The professorial ruling class in California flipped it by inviting the hordes of illegal invaders from Mexico and Central America in the 80s and 90s, while we, and I'm going to take full responsibility, we the middle class in California slept. And when we finally woke up, there are way too many of them here, and Democrats control every law enforcement agency, every executive branch within the state. So it makes virtually impossible for us to quickly to combat this huge electoral fraud. If you remove illegal immigrants, if you stop them from voting, illegally voting in California, California revert to being a Republican state, a nice Western state, which it was at one time. As a matter of fact, there are two Californias. The one by the coast, which is controlled by the professorial elite, who really is a wealthy elite, hereditary elite, children of wealthy parents, trust fund kids, and people like myself. We were forced, for many reasons, to move from the coast because we couldn't afford to buy property by the coast. And now we have to live inland in the desert. A lot of us are leaving. A lot of people are leaving. My stepson left for Colorado. And California lost a good contractor, and Colorado gained a very hardworking man, a very hardworking contractor. And Colorado gained a very good man, a very good citizen. And a lot of us are moving out. I suspect that the California problem will never be solved by statewide. The only way I can see solving it, at least in my lifetime, is figuring out how to politically and practically split our state in 2, 3, or 4. Because people who live in the desert or in Southern California, period, except by the very coast, have nothing in common with the rest of us. Have nothing in common with the rest of us. So that's the way the things are. I'm saddened to see that open fraud in Florida, and the fact that Kristen Sinema, that Marxist, fascist, Nazi person who supported Taliban, was able to fraudulently win the senatorial seat in Arizona. I don't know much about Arizona politics to talk about it, but she was declared a winner. But there's no way American citizens had a majority in voting for her. Now, I am just about to go home. I decided before I go home, I'll spend 40 minutes and do this Periscope. I'm on my website, wildnews.us, if you wish to check it out. If you want to go to videos, just you can see all of my live streams are now on BitChute. And if for some reason you want to contact me, just click on contact info. All my contact info is on it. My phone number is on it, but if you don't know me personally, I suggest to email me first. But I do answer my phone call when I'm not busy. Again, I do this as a hobby. Maybe sometime in the future, when I get enough following, I'll figure out how to monetize it. But I was demonetized. My YouTube channels were demonetized by YouTube last year. So I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm not going to give up, and I'm not going to stop mouthing off. I want to thank you again, ladies and gents, for joining me on this live stream. I appreciate it a lot more than I can ever express. Time for me to go home. And ladies and gents, God bless you. God bless you.